Andrew Yang. I had meant to talk about him before, but my Twitch channel got deleted, so the VOD in which I discussed him previously got deleted too. Now, Andrew Yang is not going to become president. However, he has a bizarrely prominent and toxic fan base. Hey, I'm sorry, you know what? Wait, let's be fair. If you like Yang, you're not toxic. Listen, I love you, buddy, okay? Internet's a scary place. A lot of mean folk out there. You're special. You hear me? You're special, okay? So when I say Yang has a toxic fan base, or when I say I am constantly inundated with people who have no idea how politics works and they only just got into it for the 2020 election and they're obsessed with Yang because he proposes libertarian tech bro solutions to complicated problems they can't possibly solve, I'm not referring to you, okay? Why don't we go over a video? This is a clip from, well, Yang. It's from his Andrew Yang for President 2020 account, but it's a clip from his interview with Joe Rogan, known sort of presidential gatekeeper these days. Let's go over this together, friends. And for us to do that, I would like to move my webcam here and then make it bigger, for I was playing Sekiro, Master of the Shinobi Sword, which is why my webcam was up there rather than here. Let's give it a shot, huh? Let's learn. What the fuck is Yang all about? What does he want? Tell me, tell us. Yang?
Welcome. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, universal basic income. This is what this is all about. My initial knee-jerk reaction was, get the fuck out of here. Like, universal basic income.
Can't
just gonna
swear.
give people money. They're just going to be lazy. Nothing's ever going to get done. That's a terrible idea. And then I started paying attention to the rise of AI and automation and how many jobs are going to get taken away from. And then once you see the actual numbers, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah, so I've been driven to universal.
Okay, so let's start right off the bat here. I will acknowledge one very important thing, and that's that Andrew Yang, better than any other candidate I've ever seen, has addressed the fact that automation is going to pose a very, very serious problem to capitalist industry in the near future. It's funny. Hey, listen, if you're a Yang fan, let me get you one. Isn't it interesting how in our economic system, an advancement in automation, which could stand to make life more efficient and therefore increase the degree to which we can produce goods and services with existing levels of labor, leads to an economic crisis and the deprivation of resources for a great many workers. Strange how that works. You know, maybe it doesn't need to be that way.
Basic income in part because I've been looking at the numbers. The 5 most common jobs in the United States right now are administrative and clerical work, retail and sales, food service and food prep, truck driving and transportation and manufacturing. Those 5 jobs comprise about half of all American jobs.
Damn.
Only 32% of Americans.
How much of them are
from college.
streamers?
So the average American's a high school grad doing one of these 5 jobs. And if you look at it, technology is already doing a number on each of these jobs. Like the first, administrative and clerical, includes call center workers, and AI is in the process of taking over that job. Retail and sales, 30% of malls are closing in the next 4 years. So the danger here is to think of it as artificial intelligence is coming. It's actually already eating up the most common jobs in our economy, and it's driving Americans into distress in various ways in the numbers.
So again, I want to de-abstract this for a second. So the reason why I'm able to wear this t-shirt, in spite of having never produced a t-shirt in my life, the reason why I have these nice computer monitors in front of me, and I have this little plushie that's here on top of my camera. Here, oh no, he's stuck there. I guess hyena stuck. Here, I've got this little thing. See, look, it's a little octopus. Isn't it cute? Little crocheted octopus. Now, the reason why I have these things is because I'm given money, but you incredibly generous people. And the reason why you have money is because you in some way provide, I assume, you generally speaking, provide services to the economy, and you are paid for those services. The reason why you're paid for those services is because your services increase the amount of material wealth for the people who pay you. So say, for example, if you're a food service worker, if you're paid $10 an hour, that's because you're producing more than $10 an hour worth of labor for the person above you. If you follow this chain, this cycle back far enough, you realize that the process of automation functionally increases the amount of wealth in the world, because wealth is abstracted relative to the work we put in for it. I can give you an easy example with, say, the textile loom, which allowed us to weave cloth at a rate incomprehensible to humans prior to the invention of the loom. It massively increased the speed with which we could produce cloth. That means that before, one person could make, let's say, 1 widget of cloth a day. Now they can make 20. That's phenomenal. That's more wealth. That's just better. That's an increase. It's an improvement. It's nothing but an improvement. Of course, the machine costs money, but I mean, hey, those machines pay for themselves, don't they? I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have built them. So why are we losing jobs? If the total amount of wealth in the world is going up, it is. World's getting more efficient. That's good. If a call center that used to take 30 people to run can now be run with 2 managers and AI, well, that means that the same amount of or more wealth is being generated with fewer people at the helm. That means that proportionally a smaller amount of labor is leading to a greater amount of productivity. Where is that wealth going? I mean, it's not going to the workers who got laid off for the AI to take their place. It's going to the owners of the business, of course. And that's sort of what I'm getting at. Automation is an issue, but it's not an issue because it's stealing people's jobs. It's an issue because it gives an excuse for people who have the power to give those jobs to further rescind themselves from any obligation to give back to society. I tell you, the ideal capitalist model is one trillionaire sitting on top of an enormous factory the size of a county that does all of the work for him. He need not lift a finger, yet he reaps the profits of everything it does. He need contribute nothing back to society, save the money he gives to the yacht makers and the champagne merchants and what have you. That's... I mean... honestly, we're not living too far off from that point. Anyway, just a nice little way to refocus our perception of automation and the threats they pose to American industry. Let's focus on this video.
Are there other alternatives that you've considered other than just universal basic income, like educating people about this being a real issue and perhaps pushing them or directing them towards other occupations?
The truth of it, Joe, is that there are 3.5 million truck drivers in this country right now. It's the most common job in 29 states. And the average trucker is a 49-year-old guy with a high school education, maybe ex-military. So then if you say, hey, I'm going to retrain 500,000 truck drivers, for what exactly is like issue number one?
Right.
And that these guys didn't love school 30 years ago. It's not like driving a truck has made them really excited about the idea.
Yeah.
And then the new job you're training them for, I looked into the data as to how good we were at retraining, let's say, displaced manufacturing workers in the Midwest when we started decimating their jobs. And we're terrible at it. Like, according to independent studies, government-funded retraining programs had a success rate of between 0 and 15% in real life. Like, this is what actually happened to the worker.
Yang's not wrong. This actually is a real problem. Retraining programs do not seem to work that well. Now, there could be 2 reasons for this. It could be the intuitive answer that retraining programs don't work that well because if you're 50 years old and you've spent your entire life doing fairly low skill manual labor, or even comparatively high skill but nonetheless manual labor at a factory, for example, or being a truck driver, the odds of you being able to be re-educated into an acceptable degree of skill in another field is pretty minimal. I mean, you know, not to, hey, not to shit on the oldies here or nothing, but, you know, I'm young. My brain, very spongy. It's wet, you know? I feel it sloshing when I move my head around. But old people's brains are crusty. Little bits of it flake off sometimes. And for that reason, it's a little more difficult for them to, you know, pick up on new skills. And hey, I mean, we're all gonna be there unless you kill yourself before you get old, which, again, you know, us young ones, not entirely unlikely. But retraining could be working because of that, or it could be working because businesses are less likely to hire a retrained worker because they will be older, which means that they will not be able to work with that company as long. They're not as much of an investment, so to speak. And because they're older, they're going to need a higher salary. So it's possible it's because the retraining itself is ineffective. It's also possible that it's because businesses are unwilling to invest in workers which would otherwise be, you know, a good addition to their company because of external monetary factors. In all likelihood, it's a combination of both.
Workers of Michigan and Indiana and Ohio.
I mean, I'm trying to look at this through rose-colored glasses, I guess. I'm trying to think if there's a way that these people can adapt.
People legitimately talk about retraining coal miners to be software engineers. Stuff that on the face of it makes no sense.
Just code.
But the reason why we're stretching for that is because we're looking for some kind of retraining-oriented solution when the numbers show that that's just not going to be the recipe. Therefore, actual success.
It's kind of preposterous to ask someone who doesn't have an education to do something that's as difficult as code, computer language.
Just fucking code,
yeah, and
bro.
unfortunately, we're going to get to a point where AI can do some basic coding at a certain level.
When you're talking about universal basic income, there's two questions that come up. How much money and where is it coming from?
So first, I want to say that if you look at the heritage of universal basic income...
So, universal basic income. Okay, this is what I'm going to be really talking about. I wanted to give Yang a fair chance to speak here because to Yang's credit, I think there actually are some issues that he tackles decently. I don't think that he's a particularly regressive candidate, for example. I would take him over a Biden. I don't think he's like the end of the world. A lot of people, crypto Nazi. I do think he's tech bro-y, but we'll get to that, okay? But I wanted to give him a fair shot here. The UBI is sort of his live or die policy. In the first Democratic debates, when everyone was giving their, like, what's your one sentence proposal to solve the war? He was, you know, a freedom dividend, provide people will compensate for automation. Like, this is his policy proposal. This is his campaign. You know, if Bernie Sanders' campaign could be defined by single payer, $15 an hour minimum wage, elimination of college debt, if those are like the big three things he goes in on, then Yang goes in hard with the UBI. He's very much not a single issue candidate, but if you looked blearily at how he presents himself, that would be it. And if you look at why his fan base cares about him, that would also be it. So let's hear him talk about the UBI. And then I'm going to tear it apart.
It's a deeply American idea where Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country. And then Martin Luther King was for it. Milton Friedman, the godfather of conservative economists, was for it. And one state has had it in effect for 37 years, where everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000
Alaska,
a year, no
right?
questions asked.
That's Alaska?
Yeah, it's Alaska, and they fund it with oil money. And what I'm going around telling people is that technology is the oil of
the oil companies cut a deal with Alaska. The oil companies get to rape the entire state and all of its beautiful, pristine wilderness, and in return, everyone in Alaska gets like a couple $100.
21st century. We're spending about $1.5 trillion right now on 126 welfare programs and Social Security. So the $3 trillion actually shrinks a lot very fast because of the fact that about half of Americans are already getting various income support from the government. So the real price tag is closer to about 1.8 trillion if you say everyone who's 18 and up.
Okay, just hold on. Let's just 1.8 trillion is a lot of money to pay per year. Just saying.
Now, for context, the entire U.S. economy is now 20 trillion, up 5 trillion in the last 12 years, and the federal budget's 4 trillion. So you're looking at 1.8 trillion. It's a lot of money. We all know that right now most Americans are living.
This was cut together by the This was cut together by his campaign team. They probably shouldn't have ended it on that, should they? Now, 1.8 trillion. It's a lot of money. Cut. Like, they don't know it's a lot of money, but just, all right. Yeah.
Paycheck to paycheck. 57% of Americans
it's a lot of money.
Can't afford
we couldn't really pay it.
Bill.
Cut.
So you put $1,000 a month into their hands, it's going to go right back into the economy. They're going to spend it on food, childcare,
rent,
car repairs they've been putting off, the occasional night out. And then all of those businesses end up hiring more people, and then we end up getting some of the money back as tax revenues. We're going to get back, let's call it $400 billion in new tax receipts because everyone's going to be spending more money. We're going to save $100 to $200 billion on things like incarceration and homelessness services and emergency room healthcare. It's a great incentive to try and stay out of jail because, you know, you stop getting it if you wind up in jail.
How much crime do you think you'd actually prevent, though, by giving people $1,000 a month? I mean, I think most of the people that are doing crime, whether it's thievery or assault, they're not thinking this out. You know, this is just either a way of life for them, either, you know, they've got real mental issues or a pattern of behavior that they can't break. I really don't think that...
By the way, I want to point out, this is very important, okay? Listen, okay? I believe very strongly in the idea of people having class-based interests, okay? I'm very Marxian in that respect. As a streamer, I am going against my interest, advocating against Yang's freedom dividend. I want you all to know that. I want you all to know... Oh boy! If all of us were getting that $1,000 a month, if you guys were getting them neat bucks, I'd be getting half of that shit, okay? I'm gonna be rolling out the fucking the sub incentives at the beginning of each month. Absolutely. First of each month's come around. Hey guys, how you doing? You enjoy that check you just got in the mail? Hey, check out these sub benefits. We just added a tier 6 sub. $200 per month. Hey, I mean, what else are you doing with your life, huh? Oh boy. Oh baby. That shit's going right back to me. But I'm not doing that. And the reason why I'm not doing that, superhuman willpower. Let's focus.
$1,000 a month is going to fix any of that.
Well, it's not going to fix all of it for sure. I mean, we'll still have jails. It's not like, you know, silver bullet.
Yeah.
But at the margins, would it keep like that person who's falling through the cracks and feels like they have no place in society, and maybe they, you know, it's like the people around them are also like, hey, you know, you don't have any value, and you get $1,000 a month, maybe like it keeps them off at the margins. And everything we're talking about is at the margins. I mean, everything's like this statistical curve, and you're taking the people who are, let's call it like the last 10 to 20%. But if you reduce our incarcerated population by 10 to 20%, I mean, that's billions and billions of dollars.
How many people have no idea that this is coming?
Well, what I say to people, Joe, is I say, hey, have you noticed stores closing on your main street? And then they say yes. And then I ask them, why is that? And then they reflect for a minute, and then they say, Amazon. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. You know, I'm like the only person just laying out the facts and being like, guys, it's not your imagination. Like, we actually are getting rid of the most common jobs in the U.S. economy, filled by high school graduates, and then replacing them with a handful of jobs for higher skilled people in different places. And then we're pretending that the first population is somehow going to access the new opportunities, when the odds of them getting up and like moving to Seattle or whatnot and becoming a web designer or like logistics manager or big data scientist or something, like essentially near zero.
Well, I love the idea, and it would be amazing if you won. I mean,
we done. Oh, it's time. Ooh. Hey, YouTube chat, I'm going to give you a look real quick, okay? This is your opportunity. Show me how mad you are. YouTube chat, can I get a fucking re? Can I get a re in YouTube chat if you're mad that I'm about to shit on Yang? Are you fucking ready? Are you ready to not collect your yeet bucks? Your yeet bucks? Ooh. Absolutely.
Oh, hun.
What?
Just a heads up, there were actually some people in your v.gg chat that were freaking out, like Little Shortcake, I think.
Uh-oh.
Just by the way.
They're on the inside.
They're on the fucking inside.
Do I need to start locking that door?
No, I like giving you heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not nice?
Thank you, baby. I love you.
Mean.
I'm going to start locking that door. Okay. Jesus Christ. All right. It's time to go over this. There are 3 main points that we're going to be going over, okay? Each of them, danker. than the last, all right? First of all, Yang's UBI is a terrible fucking idea. Just the policy on itself, terrible fucking idea. Hey, listen, I've seen some good ideas in my time, okay? Good ideas right up here, even some great ideas. Yang shit right now, if my hand, like this is like me pushing someone down to like choke on me, you know? Like that's where Yang is, okay? Listen, we can do better. I'm gonna explain why. Secondly, the way in which Yang suggests he pay for that, terrible. VAT tax, value added tax, that's how he proposes to pay for his UBI. Bad memes, not good memes, okay? We're going to talk about that. And 3, there is no meaningful relationship between his UBI proposal and the problem it's meant to fix, which is automation. He's got another reason he's putting the UBI through. Let's do it one at a time, baby. All right. Ooh, let's get it. Let's get it fucking going. Paint stream, go. Deploy. Absolutely. There we go. Listen. Let's do it. UBI. Okay? This is the shit that we're going to be discussing. UBI means Universal Basic Income. What is the goal of Universal Basic Income? Usually, it is to ensure a baseline level of sustainability, of livelihood, of happiness, of livability for every citizen in a country. That makes sense, right? Now, when Yang talks about UBI, he talks about giving folks $1,000 a month. All right. That means rich or poor, doesn't matter. $1,000 a month. That's fine. You know, listen, I'm gonna take a step away. I don't really care about like, oh no, the billionaire will be getting $1,000. I really don't care. I don't give a shit about that. Okay. So we're going to take a step away from that because I truly do not give a fuck about that. I think that's a very misleading criticism of this. All right. So UBI, how are we getting at this? Well, for Yang, that means... Oh, that was such a straight line. Did you see that shit? Holy shit, look at that one. How the fuck did he do that? Like to see Yang try and do that, okay? That's $1,000 a month right there, okay? Now, this is going to every citizen in America over the age of 17, so 18 and older, all right? That's a lot of humans. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of money. 1.8 trillion, apparently. I don't know if any estimates have been adjusted since then. That's okay. We don't need to go any hard math. Let's talk about the pragmatic consequences of UBI. Well, if you give everyone $1,000 a month, as you do here, where is that money going to go? Now, there are obvious, I'm going to assume we're a middle class or poor person because those are the people I care about. If you're rich, you don't need this fucking $1,000, okay? If you're middle class, lower middle class, poor, that $1,000 is going to mean a lot, okay? So let's talk about that. Where is this money going to go? Well, you're already alive, which means you're probably surviving right now. Maybe you're in debt, but you are nonetheless not dead, or you wouldn't receive the $1,000. You're not dead. You probably want to keep it going that way. Probably going to have to put that towards food. How do we draw food? Let's do an apple. That's not a good start to an apple. Okay, gonna need to put that shit towards apple. All right. Here's a big necessity. Rent. This is a fucking big one, okay? See that shit? Rent. Probably put some of that shit towards education. If you're paying off student debt or if you got kids you send to school, that's a pretty big issue right there, right? So we got rent, education, housing, you know, got other shit over here, fucking car repairs and whatever. Basically, the basic necessities that you put forth towards life. Cocaine, transportation, medical issue. Like, they're fucking, what do you want me to draw all that shit? Shut the fuck up, Chad. Hey, Chad. Shut up. Now, what's wrong with all this? $1,000 towards everyone, okay? Well, the problem is, Yang's UBI comes with a little stipend. Now, I've heard rumors he's walked back on this, and if that's true, Neat. But I haven't been able to confirm it looking at his website. If he's changed this, that's good, but it doesn't change the entirety of the accusations I'm levying his way. The way Yang's UBI works means that any amount you are currently receiving from existing welfare programs gets deducted from the value of your freedom dividend. Meaning, if you get $400 a month in food stamps, that's $600 a month you get. If you're a struggling young mother, you benefit from WIC. That's Women and Infants. What is the full? Don't mind me. No, not that. What is it called? Women, Infant, and Children. Oh, is it just WIC, W-I-C? Yeah, Women, Infant, and Children. There we go. Now, if you benefit from that, meaning like if you're a struggling young mom or whatever, trying to take care of your kids, say you get maybe another $400 a month. And, you know, let's say that your local municipality gives people who live in Section 8 housing discounts on transportation. Say you get about $120 a month from that program, and damn, that ain't so good. The issue is, and this is incomprehensible to me, this really truly is, if UBI is meant to benefit the people who need it most. I mean, what wouldn't you want? You know, a rich person doesn't need $1,000 a month. The poor people need $1,000 a month. Why the fuck would you make it so that the benefits you get are discounted from that payment? It means that if you receive more than $1,000 a month off government benefits, as many people do, you lose. You get nothing. The poorest people get nothing. That's pretty fucking weird. But it gets even worse than that. See, you can actually choose. You can choose to rescind your current welfare benefits to receive Yang's freedom dividend. You can say, you know what? No more fucking food stamps. Let's just get that $1,000. You can do that. That's an option. Now, you're not really getting anything from that. You're getting the same amount in terms of monetary compensation. It's just coming to you in a different form. But that's still kind of nice, I guess. Or at least it would be nice if getting a flat check wasn't objectively worse than the existing welfare programs that people benefit from. So right now, we're looking at a system of UBI. Let's think about this. A UBI system meant to elevate people who will suffer most when automation comes, lower and middle class families, if there is a middle class in 10 years. And it is designed to leave out people who need it the most. This isn't me, flowery speech. I'm not editorializing this. This is literally the meat of the proposal. And in an interview that Mr. Andrew Yang did with I believe it was Dave Rubin, who's a far right pundit on YouTube or some shit. Dave Rubin said, sort of probed Andrew Yang on why he went for this particular proposal. And Andrew Yang came ahead and said that he was using it in part to dismantle existing welfare programs. We've got all this bloat sustaining the poor, you see. So if you get the poor to willingly take their hands off of those welfare programs, they start to fail, and you have people just relying on that $1,000 a month. So that's kind of weird, These are the people who need the help most, right? Deconstructing welfare programs and putting forward a UBI stipend that barely helps them while also getting discounted from the existing programs they benefit from. That's a little bit weird. Now, it gets even worse. You want to know something interesting about food stamps? You use them to buy food. Did you know that? That's why they're called food stamps. Now you can get some other thing, that or this with food stamps, but by and large, they're used to get food. So, you know who can't get their hands on that money? Landlords. If you're getting $500 a month in food stamps, that is money that goes towards food. It doesn't raise your general income. Now, if you're getting $500 a month, let's say half of what Yang offers you, well, that could go towards food. But you know, your landlord has really had his eyes on a new car. The 3 he has right now are out of season. And hey, look at that. A whole bunch of the people who live in properties owned by that landlord are now getting $1,000 extra a month. They had to give up their welfare programs to get it, of course, in the hopes that they could use it to buy things like, food, education down payments, medical care. But you really want that new car. Who's to say you couldn't raise rent a little bit? Couldn't do that before. Can't raise rent on food stamps. You can't raise rent until no one can afford to live there. But if suddenly food that was once allocated in such a way that it could only be applied to a base human necessity, sustenance, can now be teased out towards your rent payments? If you think, by the way, that I'm being hyperbolic or facetious, I'm not. There are people in your life who will try to take everything they can from you if they get the opportunity. They'll raise rent on you. They'll raise prices of commodities on you. It's literally their job to make as much from you as they can. Landlords, business owners. That's what they do. It's how our economy works. And one of the reasons why our existing welfare programs are designed the way they are is so that that money goes to where it's needed, not to people who could siphon it along the way. Think of money from a WIC tax. Or no, let's keep it to food stamps because that's nice and simple. Think of money for food stamps as a food ration. Imagine getting a bushel of apples every day. Them apples. It's apples. You eat them. That's what you do with apples. You can also throw them at rapscallion teenage boys playing hooky at your local school. But for the most part, you eat them. And when the government wants you to eat, they give you apples. Or they give you food stamps, which you use to buy apples. The reason they do it that way is because nobody, in the process between them giving you the food stamp and you purchasing with that food stamp at a local grocery store, can siphon that off of you. Now, if you make that money, well, money can go towards anything. Money doesn't have to go towards food. Money can go towards rent. Money can go towards video games. Money can go towards all sorts of things that people are keen to sell you on. If Yang's UBI goes through, and money which was previously allocated to welfare programs then gets turned into raw cash landlords know you have, rent prices will increase. Everything will increase in price. That's how the economy works. Producers will increase the cost of their commodities in response to a perceived increase in the availability of funds in the constituency. Now, I'm not saying they're going to instantly $1,000 for an apple. No, of course not. But small price changes do add up, Especially if you're poor. And it's the poor that I care about because it's the poor who are supposed to be benefiting from UBI. Now, I like UBI as a concept, mind you. But I don't want it to be done through money. I like UBI being provided in ways that it can't be siphoned off by people who are trying to make more money off of your sustenance living. Why is my cam so blurry? Jesus. I'm being reminded by my partner that disability, you know, when you get paid by the government for having a disability, like if you're fucked, body's all fucked up, you know, can't really work, you get like a stipend from the government. Disability doesn't allow you to have more than $2,000 to your name. So if you're on disability and Yang's UBI, you can legally only have another $1,000 to your name from any other sources at any point in time, or your disability will get cut because you're too wealthy. My partner has a brother who's on disability. That's interesting. Cutting in half the available funds of people who are literally dependent on the government to survive before they get cut off for being too wealthy. You think Andrew Yang would raise the ceiling on that to compensate for the existence of his UBI proposal? Because I haven't heard him mention that. At no point have I heard Andrew Yang say, and because this would lead to a general increase of availability in funds for everyone, that means we will be raising the ceiling on disability allotments for people who need it because they will otherwise not be able to have more than $1,000 other dollars available to them at any given point in time. Haven't really heard him say that. Well, maybe I just missed it. So, I like UBI as a concept, but I like it in ways that fill base needs of people. If we got a stipend for housing, a stipend for food, a stipend for education and medical care, that's effectively what single payer is. You know, you pay in through taxes, everyone does, but at point of contact, you don't pay anything for the services you receive from a hospital. It benefits the poor the most because the poor proportionally will pay the least in taxes, or at least they're supposed to. But proportional to that donation, get the most from the services they receive at the hospital. I like that. What I don't like is a UBI which takes the form of a flat dividend, which is subject to economic fluctuations. Who knows how much a dollar is going to be worth in a blankety-blank point of time? Who knows how many people are going to raise prices in response to the knowledge that everyone now has $1,000 a month? Do you remember just a little bit ago when I made a joke about how I, a streamer, if there was a fucking neat bucks going around, how I would start throwing out sub incentives at the beginning of each month if everyone had $1,000 to give? And some people in chat were like, unironically, I would throw some of that your way. Not everyone asks politely like I do. Some people will just take it from you, like your landlord, okay? Rent prices will go up. Commodity prices will go up. And if you're really poor, if you're on welfare already, you'll be getting less than everyone. Your rent will go up anyway, but you won't be getting any more than you were previously because the money you're receiving is just a monetized form of the benefits you were already receiving before Yang. You get less than nothing. And as we're about to discuss, you get less than nothing. Paint stream, deploy. Die. Part 2, the VAT tax. Can this also apply to raising the minimum wage? Minimum wage studies have shown it works a little bit differently because minimum wage increases are not ubiquitous. Everyone would get that $1,000, but not everyone would benefit from a minimum wage increase, meaning that landlords couldn't reliably know, like, that every single human being that they rent to has additional money to give. And also, minimum wage increases come at the expense, at least hypothetically, if they come along with like decent regulation of upper tax rates, also comes along with like it's at the expense of the business, whereas the UBI proposal comes at the expense of the taxpayer, which we're about to get into. Now, I'm doing the swirlies to warm my hand up. VAT tax. Raise your hand. Hey, raise your hand if you know what VAT tax is. VAT tax. You know? Here, I'm going to add the words to you, okay? Value added tax. Value added tax. Now, what does that mean? Let's discuss it. A value added tax is what we call a regressive tax. This means that it is a tax which disproportionately, that's relative to their income, affects the poor rather than the wealthy. So the poorer you are, the more you will suffer from a VAT tax. Now, oh wait, VAT tax, value-added tax. A VAT tax, you see, is a tax in which every time there is a exchange of commodity or a business transaction between business enterprises, a small tax is added to that exchange. So let me give you an example. Okay, watch this. Okay. Little Shortcake XOXO, I see you very angry in chat, and from everything you've typed, you kind of sound like a fucking idiot. So I'm saying this to you personally. Little Shortcake XOXO. Calm down. It's gonna be okay. It's okay to be wrong. That's what I'm here for. Just take a seat. It's all right. Little Shortcake XOXO has poignantly reminded me that poor people don't own factories. This explains to me that Little Shortcake XOXO doesn't understand economics. That's okay. I'm gonna show. Watch this. Say you are a logging. Okay, let's say our end goal here. Okay, our end goal here is to produce a what's a good let me think. What's a good commodity? Let me think of let me look around. What am I looking for? A pencil. Let's go with a pencil, okay? Yeah, okay, yes, you're all very clever. Wow, wow, phenomenal. Now, let's take a look at a pencil really quick, okay? Pencils are cool, don't you think? I use them pretty often when I draw. Our goal here is to produce a pencil. Let's take a look at the supply line it takes to produce a pencil in a modern globalized economy, okay? First, somebody gotta chop down them trees. Pencil's made of wood, right? Wow. And I'll put a little here. I'll put a little. See, look at that. Little axe sticking out of the tree. Okay? So that's one. Okay? Somebody's got to mine that graphite, right? Graphite, you know? The little lead they put in the center of the pencil. I don't think that's actually lead. I think it's graphite. So let's draw a little pickaxe, huh? Fun note, graphite is not actually mined with a pickaxe. Don't worry about that though, okay? See? Look at that. Nowadays they get big old machines to do it, okay? So, we got the graphite. Now you got to get the rubber. The rubber for the eraser, you see. Rubber is harvested from trees. I don't really know what they look like. I'm going to say they look like this. Who knows? Maybe they do look like that. Would be pretty cool if I was right, huh? Now, we've assembled the materials. Oh, we're also going to need to produce paint. Yellow paint, that's right. You're also going to need to mine up. Here, we're also going to need to mine the metal that you use to brace the wood against the rubber of the eraser. And you're also going to need to get paint, okay? I don't know how you make paint. The question mark is for paint, okay? And then finally, you have to assemble it all in a big, ugly factory that produces 1 billion pencils an hour. Okay? That's pretty cool, right? Oh. Apparently rubber trees just look like normal boring trees. This is very disappointing to me. Rubber is supposed to be the most whimsical element of them all. I know it's not an element, shut the fuck up. Rubber is bouncy. I assume the trees would be as well. Very disappointing. Honestly, I wish. Honestly, my enthusiasm for this stream just tanked. Okay, so this is an extremely simplified example of what a supply chain might look like. You have to cut down the wood, mine up the graphite, mine up the metals. You have to process the metals. Oh God, don't even fucking get me started. Like on mining metals, that means, I mean, you have to mine up, so for getting steel, that means that you have to mine up fucking iron ore, and that has to be purified and distilled and forged, and then added the coal that you add, and the charcoal, you turn it into steel, and that, like, for every process here, there are like 16 additional fractally complicated processes. This is just for making a pencil, okay? Life is complicated. You've got to get the rubber for the eraser, and then you have to like it's actually aluminum. Okay, it's actual aluminum. All right. Aluminum that wraps around to connect the rubber to the wood. And then you've got this, and I don't know what the fuck you have to do to rubber to turn it into a eraser. This is not like a regular, like it's not just regular rubber, right? Like there are like plastic products all around me. It's like there's a different kind of rubber that you turn to pencils. I don't fucking know. And then you have to make paint. You have to put it all together. Okay, cool. So this is the process of making a pencil in this day and age entails the labor and production of literally dozens of different manufacturing agents, hundreds of different people, maybe even thousands across different continents. Okay, it's synthetic, so it comes from the oil industry. And it's so complicated. How the fuck are fucking pencils even made? Who the fuck knows? The problem is, under a value-added tax, you add ka-ching, 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 a little tax, ka-ching, ka-ching, to every single one of these transactions. That's not how a dollar sign looks? Shut the fuck up. Fucking pieces of shit. That's not how a dollar sign looks. Shut the fuck up. Stupid fucking idiots. Now, I am simplifying this to an extent. The value-added tax applies essentially every time value is added to a product. Now, this doesn't mean that literally every single time any item changes hands between any business agencies, there's going to be a value-added tax thrown on top of it. But it does mean that in larger supply chains, there is going to be a lot that racks up. This is meant to essentially not penalize, but it's essentially intended to, you know, milk money off of the wealthy, off of the business, so that it can be redistributed to the people in the form of a UBI. Now, this is obviously, at least, you know, nominally a good thing, but let's look at the practical consequences. The reason why this is referred to as a regressive tax is because all of these added taxes, while they do go to the government, of course, are going to increase the cost of business. And that increase in the cost of business is going to increase the cost of the commodity. You don't believe in trickle-down economics, do you? Because it doesn't work. You know, everyone makes fun of it now. Oh, trickle-down economics. Oh, just, you know, give the wealthy money and it'll somehow do. You know what's equally as ludicrous? You know what people make fun of just as much? The idea of taxing a business for their commodities and not expecting them to increase the cost of their commodities in response to the increased price it took to make them. That is a laughable suggestion, you see. Laughable. That's why value-added taxes are called regressive. Because, hey, this isn't theory, by the way. You can go Google value-added tax. It's called a regressive tax. You can look at how it's been applied in the UK. It's a regressive tax. It leads to an increase in the cost of commodities. You think businesses are going to take that on the shoulder if it goes from 1/10 of a cent to, I don't know, 1/8 of a cent to make a single pencil? Do you think the business is just going to go like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, okay, I guess we just make less money now? That's not the history of capitalism in the United States, my friend, or anywhere else ever, because it's not how it works. That increased in price goes right back down to the consumer. You end up paying more for the pencil, and not just the pencil, my friend. You end up paying more for everything affected by that value-added tax. That's a lot of things, my friend. Even if the value-added tax is only applied to luxury goods, how exactly do you determine what a luxury good is? And what's more, don't you think it's likely that businesses that have a hand in producing both luxury and non-luxury goods will increase the price of all commodities to shore up the losses from one end? This happens all the time. It's one of the reasons why food gets more expensive in rural areas, because it costs more to transport that food there. I know for a fact, I used to live in Northern California, where there's one road, one wiggly mountainous road that leads right up to where I would live. There was one road. There were no docks you could bring food in, and the airport wasn't large enough to take cargo planes. If you wanted to get food, yep, the US 101, if you wanted to get food in Humboldt, USA, it came by truck on a single lane road, sequestered against the mountains, huddled against the redwoods. Do you know how much that drives up food prices? Do you know how expensive it is to get all of your food through one route, subject constantly to shortages and delays? A single landslide, which happened pretty frequently, could knock out the supply chain for hours or sometimes up to a day. And it increased the cost of food. Because the means by which that food was brought to us grew more expensive, and businesses looking to shore up profits when they knew they could increase the price to compensate. That's how it works. That's just how the economy works. The value-added tax is regressive because poor people are the ones who spend a disproportionate amount of income on commodity goods. If you're wealthy, that is not the case. If you're poor, if you're making like $30,000 a year in like a city as like a family or whatever, 30 or 40, I don't fucking know. If you're not doing that well, okay? If you're not doing that well, all of your money that isn't going to rent is going towards either debt or baseline sustenance commodities like food or like car parts if you need to like shore that shit up, or any of the myriad things that you need to live your life. If you're wealthy, that's not the case. I'm upper middle class. Guys, I've been upper middle class for like 4 months thanks to streaming. And already the proportional amount of money that I have spent on like random commodities has fucking plummeted. It's fucking, whew, it's down here. You know why? I only need so much food. I only need so much dumb shit. Here, look. See this acrylic with the boobies? Look at that. See? I would have gotten this anyway. The total amount that I spend on commodities hasn't increased in the slightest. I spend the exact same amount, but I have more money to spend. Now that money goes towards stuff like, hey, maybe do I want to get a car, you know? Hey, maybe I could buy flight tickets to go to an event, that sort of thing. That's the problem with this. Not only does the UBI disproportionately hurt the poor, not only does the reduction of welfare benefits into a pure monetary value make it more likely that landlords will increase rent and commodity prices will raise, but the way in which we're paying for that UBI disproportionately hurts the poor. This is like really bad. This is not like extremely high level economics. This is a very, very baseline. So the impact of a VAT tax would be more or less like a second sales tax. Exactly, Frosty T.O. Precisely. It's essentially a sales tax with more steps. It's just not a good tax. VAT tax is just not a good tax at doing things. This is like very fucking like baseline level criticism of his UBI. This is not high level esoteric economic theory. This is just very simply, this wouldn't work unless your goal isn't really to help people. Unless your goal is just a massive multi-trillion-dollar scheme to weaken welfare programs in the US because it's part of your libertarian tech bro fantasy. I don't know. I don't know. You think someone would do that? Just go from being a multimillionaire business person in Silicon Valley and run as a presidential candidate to fuck over poor people? Do you think someone would do that? I'm being a little facetious, of course. Little Shortcake, I know he doesn't want to apply it to basic commodities. That's why I said many of the supply chains that involve the production of luxury goods also involve the productions of basic commodities, and it seems likely to me, and by likely to me I mean this is an economic fact, that those businesses would compensate for their losses on the luxury goods by increasing prices around the board. Why wouldn't they? Everyone has an extra $1,000 a month. Now, I don't think that Yang himself is a bad person. He said some weird stuff in the past about declining white birth rates, and he's gone on the Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro shows. I don't really like the idea of legitimizing those platforms for presidential candidates. That's a little fucking weird, having a presidential candidate going on, Ben, why don't people whose houses are about to be flooded just move and sell their homes? Shapiro, or Dave, I'll have Stefan Molyneux, a literal skull-shaped measuring neo-Nazi, and ask him softball questions to legitimize his platform. Rubin, that's a little bit weird to me that he would do that, but hey, and his tweets about how the white birth rate is declining, that's a little, but I don't know. I legitimately don't know. What I do know is that this UBI proposal is just not, it's just not good. And it doesn't even solve the problem he wants to solve. How exactly is this meant to address people losing their jobs due to automation? Can you explain that to me? Wasn't that what this was all for? As people lose work to automation, we need to shore it up with this or with that. How does this do that? $1,000 a month isn't enough for anyone to live on. It's certainly not compensation for a job. And if you were going to lose their job, you could apply for unemployment benefits anyway and probably get more from that and from welfare in general than you could through the UBI proposal. So how does it fix the automation problem? I mean, if I was really worried about automation, then what I would suggest is some sort of massive like jobs program, you know? An enormous jobs program from the government, or maybe some like tax policy to redistribute wealth from businesses that automate to the people who are hurt by that automation, or some way to redirect the increased production from that more efficient automation towards the people who suffer by losing their jobs. It would be complicated, but we can do it. It's possible. This is a real issue. But this is not a real solution. $1,000 is nothing, y'all rich or something? Trying to live off $1,000 a month is, yeah, not that much. Especially not if the landlords and all the fucking commodity producers are going to be increasing their prices to compensate. Anyway, that's the me Marino. If you like Andrew Yang, or if you're convinced by his policies or whatever, that's cool. I love you, buddy. All right? You probably got your eyes on some real issues that we should probably be talking about. And part of finding a solution to serious problems is encountering, considering, and dismissing bad ideas. It's a very, very, very important part of finding solutions to problems. Oh boy, do we find a bad idea.